I was a kid when I started. I've failed. I've said the wrong things sometimes. I've done the wrong things sometimes. And I've dusted myself off and stood up again and tried again, you know. It took me a long time to forgive myself for making mistakes, having failures, being insecure. I used to be really tough on myself because this business is tough. Hi everyone, this is Priyanka Chopra Jonas and this is the timeline of my career.
Miss India.
I was taking these headshots for a scholarship program for a school in Australia, and the photographer said, you know, you're really pretty, can I take some more pictures? And my teenage vanity was like, yeah, of course. Sure. So he took some portfolio pictures, like mall shots, you know, soft focus with my hand like this, like all of those pictures. My brother had a brilliant idea that if I had to go for a pageant in Mumbai, which was away from our small town, he'd get his room back. And he suggested that to my mom. So I went for the preliminary round with my mom at 17 years old, kind of, you know, walked up the ranks, made it to the finals, went to Mumbai city, took part in the Miss India pageant and won it. And then I was sent for the Miss World pageant, not knowing anything. Suddenly I was, you know, thrown into this world where people knew me. And then I went for Miss World. It was about 97 girls from different parts of the world that year. And we were there in London, and being terrified and competitive at the same time, I kind of put my best foot forward and won that too, and it just changed the trajectory of my career.
I admire her from the bottom of my heart for being so considerate, compassionate, kind, giving up her life for people in India.
I first came across acting when I was in the States in high school here. I remember Fiddler on the Roof being one of the productions in my high school. I remember being mesmerized. I was like, how does one do that? I just did not know that that kind of grandiosity could be achieved in a moment. Whenever there's somebody who's won a beauty pageant, especially a prestigious pageant like Miss World, Miss Universe, Miss India, it just has been sort of a natural tendency for Bollywood or the Hindi film industry to gravitate towards them. You have producers knocking on your door because you're the it thing, and that's what happened with me. My parents, who were both physicians, had no idea what to do with this attention. So we had a Chopra family conversation like we always did. My dad asked me, what do you want to do? Do you want to try it? And I said, what if I don't? And he said, that's the thing. I don't want you to have a what if in your life. What if 5 years later, you know, you do what you're doing, you go back to college, and you always have this regret at the back of your head of like, what if I did? What if I had tried it? So he said, give it a shot for a year and a half. If you're terrible, you'll still be 19. You can go back to school. So the first few movies that I did was a Tamil movie called Tamizhan, and 2 Hindi movies, Aitraaz and The Hero. Both of them were touted to be really big movies, and I remember walking on the set not knowing anything and thinking that acting was about the clothes that you wear and the makeup and hair that you get done. And then I walked onto a set and I had to think about how to take these words that were on paper and make them a person. And that was terrifying. I remember on Tamizhan, which was really difficult for me because I did not know Tamil as a language. I was learning it phonetically, memorizing it, understanding the meaning behind it, and then saying my lines. But I loved watching my co-actor Vijay, and he was one of the first few influences in my life. He had tremendous humility on set. Once he came on set, he wouldn't leave set. And that's something I do even now. I very rarely will go back to my trailer in between shots, unless it's a really long time that I have to wait. I'm usually hanging out on set. I like to understand why we're taking different shots. I like to speak to the crew. I like to kind of be in the mix.
It's hot, man.
can think about culture, whether it's in America or in India, it has changed. I can't even imagine the clothes I used to wear that time. But at that time, big heroines that would always be in the mainstream commercial movies had to be a lot more coy, pure, good girls, versus my character in Aitraaz was a bad bitch. At that time, it was a lot. This movie was made by a director duo called Abbas Mastan, who were very well known, very well respected. They were making a remake of Disclosure, Demi Moore's Disclosure. And because my character was a sexual predator and I was 21 or 22, people were like, oh, if you play like such a sexually charged character, I don't know if your audience will be able to see you with that kind of purity and that dream girl who's a good girl, the girl you want to take to your parents basically versus the one you want to take to your bed. And that imagery at that time was something people thought was important. I was shocked with the kind of reception that I got after the movie. I'll never forget, we were at the screening and I was terrified because I was sort of embarrassed too because my parents were watching it as well. And the movie finished and people stood up and they started clapping and they started looking at me. And there were other people in the movie who were massive stars, but I walked out of the theater and people were standing outside to congratulate me. And it was such a crazy moment in my head because I'd built it up in my head that, I was gonna be canceled after this movie and no one's ever gonna work with me again, but it changed my career. And that movie really opened up my eyes to wanting to, delve into things that made me nervous, made me scared. I kind of figured out that I worked well under pressure and it changed my choices after that.
रोमा, ये क्या मजाक?
ये मजाक नहीं है।
तुम पागल हो गई हो क्या?
पागल तो मैं उसी दिन हो गई थी जब तुमने मेरे भाई रमेश और उसके मंगेतर को मारा था।
रमेश, तुम्हारा भाई?
हाँ।
I looked for a challenge. I wanted each person, each woman that I play to be her own person. And Dawn was a really pivotal movie in my career at that point. It was a remake of a very popular Hindi movie by the same name called Dawn in the 70s. And to step into the shoes of Zeenat Aman was terrifying in itself because she's an icon. But I wanted to bring my own vibe to it. And I remember speaking to my director, Farhan, and he really wanted me to learn Tai Chi and sort of have the body language of a fighter, someone who could, who was confident. And it was one of the first times that I had started doing stunts, not knowing that I'll be doing them for the rest of my life myself. I just took to it. I took to how learning something would change my body language, how learning a new skill would make me different as a character. And then that's something I would continue to do for many, many films after that, whether it was languages, dialects, many different kinds of skill sets that I would learn. Kaminey was made by one of my favorite filmmakers in the world. His name is Vishal Bharadwaj. And it's a predominantly male movie. I was probably one of the most pivotal female parts, if not only, in the movie. And it had like 9 scenes or something, that's it. I was like, Vishal sir, this is such a small part. I want to do a full movie with you. And he was like, trust me, just trust me. See what I do with you. And I did. I had to learn a new language called Marathi, which is the local language of the state of Maharashtra in India. And I played a very deep-rooted Maharashtrian girl. So I had to learn the language and specifically the dialect from the place that she came from, but also have to strip myself from the glamour that I had sort of collected by doing movies like Dawn or Aitraaz. And over time, I was playing all of these really interesting characters, but very polished characters, versus Sweetie was unraveled, loud, brash, held a machine gun if she wanted to, used vile language, and was feisty. And I had so much fun.
काय काका तुला दिसत नाही का तेरा वो भोपे भाऊ फोटो के लिए अपनी बहन को बेचने को तैयार है अरे नहीं करनी शादी मुझे उस बिल्डर और उसके कमीने बेटे से
Kaminey again pivoted my career in a different direction where I started taking on a lot more indie movies, a lot more character-driven parts, and Sweetie was one of the first few where I started feeling comfortable without the hair, the makeup, the clothes, the glamour of it all. I just sort of became my character.
मेरा बात ध्यान से सुनो मेरी ये गोल्ड मेडल तुम्हारा है सिर्फ तुम्हारा
When I played Mary Com, I was very skeptical taking it on in the beginning because she was a living, breathing icon and she made place for so many female athletes. And plus, I looked nothing like her. She comes from the northeast of India and I am, from northern India, and we physically didn't look alike. In hindsight, yes, it should have probably, the part should have probably gone to someone from the northeast. But I was just greedy as an actor to be able to get my hands to tell her story because she inspired me as a woman so much, as an Indian woman so much, as an athlete. And when the filmmakers were insisting I do it, I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I went and met Mary. I spent time in her home. I met her children. I met her husband. I had to spend almost 5 months training to learn the sport, which is not easy, by the way, for anyone who's not tried it. That's hard to do. And to physically alter my body as well, to get into an athlete's shape. So physically it was really tough, mentally it was really tough, and because I physically didn't look like her, I decided to embody her spirit. So I spent a lot of time with her so that she could educate me about what her choices were, why she made the choices that she did. And to me it's one of my most special movies that I've ever done because of working so closely with her.
None of the threats today were real. The only real threat was you.
Go on.
The exercise was built on information provided to us by you. But information is only worth anything if you trust the source that it came from.
I'd been acting in the Hindi language for such a long time, and culturally that's very different than speaking in English and acting in English and being someone who's been born and raised in America versus being someone who's been born and raised in India. Those are two different girls. So now I had to quickly understand what that girl was like. Having spent time in the States as a teenager, it wasn't too alien. So I got a dialect coach to work with me for my American accent, and I walked in and I remember holding my breath for a second and being like, oh shit. I went to the bathroom, and this was one of those moments that you would probably see in a romantic comedy, where the actress is like looking at herself in the mirror and saying, you got this. But I swear to God, I did that. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, you're like 40 movies old. Your movies, some of them, have like blown up the box office. You kind of know how to do this. And I had to like really tell myself that I know how to do this job. Like, this is what I do. This is like literally my profession. Contained myself, had a sip of water, walked into the room, did the best that I could, got the job. Whew, thankfully. And again, it changed the trajectory of my life because I was, the first Indian actor ever to headline a network TV show. And to have someone South Asian playing a mainstream character on mainstream TV or movies was very, you didn't see that a lot at all. Even now, there's just a few of us that are sort of holding that flag strong. But at that time, there were very few. And, the pilot happened, it did what it did, and kind of changed my life.
You were playing us, and you even left clues in each room to taunt us. And you held the key to all of it in your hand the whole time.
For people who have been to India, you will understand how different, America as a country is and India as a country is. Two of the biggest movie industries in the world, but two completely different cultures. And as an actor, I talk with my hands. I'm loud, I'm expressive, I'm big. And that's what our movies are, Indian movies are big, loud, expressive. When I first started working on Quantico, I used to hear from my directors, Priyanka, let's just take it down a little bit. And I was like, what does that mean? Take down my decibel? Am I loud? Maybe just a little smaller. I heard that a lot when I first started acting in America. I kind of had to pivot a little bit into understanding, as someone who would have grown up in a different culture, how they would react to a situation versus how someone who had grown up in a different country, how they would react. So it took me a lot of observing, understanding, working with acting coaches, and listening to filmmakers, watching my co-actors with the choices that they made, exactly how I had done 10 years ago when I first joined Bollywood movies.
Why would I shoot the man we both love? Damn it!
I got out, Balram. What is it that you want to do?
I want to serve you and Ashok sir.
No. Okay, stop. No, stop saying that. That's why this caste system thing is total bullshit. When I first read The White Tiger, the novel, I was like, this movie can't happen without me. I love this movie too much. So I called my agents and I offered my services, and I said I would love to EP the movie. I would love to push it. I'd love to help market it, support it as much as I can so it gets as many eyeballs as it can. So I met Ramin Barani. I chased him. When I want something, I really do go after it. I auditioned for him 2 or 3 times for Pinky. Once we did a reading, just him and me too. And I almost had my husband holding the camera, but Ramin was like, no, that'll be too distracting. I really worked on wanting that movie because I reached a point where I was craving, for the artist in me to feel unsure and to feel, like I had to dig deep. I just sort of needed an immersive experience, and that's what it was. And I'm so proud of that movie. Mukesh tried to stop Ashok from marrying me because of this caste thing. Well, fuck him. And fuck that.
We met a long time ago.
Good morning.
Sad tea.
My father knew we'd meet again, though he would have wished for happier circumstances.
Matrix 4 is as mainstream as it gets. It took 10 years, but here we are. It took 10 years of knocking on doors and making introductions and, sort of hoping to be a part of mainstream global pop culture and working towards it. And I feel really grateful to, be getting those opportunities, and I feel sort of an acceptance with my colleagues, and that's a really great feeling. But yet, walking onto the set of Matrix 4 with the legacy that stands for, I just wanted to stay quiet and be a fly on the wall and watch everyone do what they do. This is an incredible cast and an incredible movie that had come together, and I just remember being starstruck the whole time.
I'm sorry. You knew what happened to him. You knew that he and Trinity both were alive. And you didn't tell me.
There were times I doubted my decision, Iobi. But Io needed you. This city needed to be built for your people as well as mine.
The world the Wachowskis have created is like nothing else, and no one else will ever be able to do that. I mean, The Matrix changed movies for me, for so many people in our generation, and I was just really, really grateful to be a small part of such a large legacy. Just very, very exciting. When you become a public person, the court of public opinion is where everything is decided for you. I was okay with that for a very long time. I thought that was part of the job. I thought that, I had to live up to people's expectations, yes, but more than that, to people's opinions. And now on the other side of 35, I realized that was futile, People's opinions don't make your career. What you do between action and cut, that'll make your career. Took me a long time to understand that.